food, water, human companionship. These are all things that we need to survive and to live happily. There is one more thing, however, that I would argue is equally as important. Memory. Without memory, there is no culture. Without memory, there would be no civilization, no society, no future. Elie Wiesel. Without your memory, you would not be able to effectively communicate with the people around you. You could wake up in the same bed, in the same house, in the same room every single day, but still have not one clue how to get to the food or how to turn on the kitchen sink. Perhaps eventually you would figure out how to open the fridge or how to turn the knob on the bathtub. But if you were unable to retain this information, it would essentially be worthless in the long run. Our memory is a complex system, but it really isn't too difficult to comprehend and remember. The science behind our memory is extremely intriguing. There are multiple different stages of memory, all of them complex and all of them interesting. There are, however, things that you may be doing that are detrimental to your memory, but as long as you take care of yourself properly, your memory can do some very interesting and very neat things. Understanding the way that your memory works will allow you to recognize the signs of memory loss and brain damage and teach you how to improve your memory so that you may remember all of the great things that will happen in your life. In the simplest terms as possible, your memory is a set of neural connections in your brain. It is your ability to encode, store, retain, and eventually recall information that you have learned and experiences that you have experienced in your life. According to humanmemory.net, it is the reconstruction or recreation of past experiences by the synchronous firing of neurons that were involved in the original experience. Your memory is connected to but different from learning. When we learn a new language, we study the words of the language. However, when we write or speak this new language, we are pulling the words that we have learned from our memory. Thus, memory is dependent on learning, but learning is also dependent on memory. These firing of neurons occur in the hippocampus, a horseshoe part of your brain of which you have two on both your left and right side, which is in charge of the formation, organization, and storage of new memories. Recall the line from the song Stressed Out by 21 Pilots that goes, "How come a certain smell can take me back to when I was young? How come I'm never able to identify where it's coming from?" The hippocampus is responsible for this scent memory connection. What may be slightly confusing, however, is that the hippocampus does not store your long-term memory, but rather it helps file away short-term memory and assists in making the connections that allow us to quickly recall our long-term memories when we need them. In order to identify a smell, you must remember a time that you have smelled it previously and connect it to what you are currently smelling. Thus, when your hippocampus is damaged, not only does that affect your ability to remember, but it also affects your actual ability to smell. There are multiple stages of our memory, but I'm going to stick with the three basic and most generally accepted stages of our memory: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Sensory memory is the initial stage of our memory. It is during this stage our senses gather information about our environment and use it to understand what is going on. So in your sensory memory is only stored for around a few seconds, usually half a second for visual information and 3 to 4 seconds for auditory information. You use your sensory memory when you are driving down a road and you quickly admire a pretty house off to the side. You will generally start to forget this house as soon as your brain focuses on making sure you're driving the speed limit and stopping when necessary. Once you reach your destination, chances are you will have completely forgotten that you ever stopped to admire this pretty house, because there was really nothing significant about the house except that it was one of hundreds of pretty houses that you have seen in your lifetime. Your brain will quickly erase that memory to begin making room for more sensory information to be taken in. Now, imagine again that you're driving down this road, but this time you're looking for a specific address. You repeat to yourself out loud, 76453. 76453, as you look for the address of the place that you need to go. Once you reach your destination and you go inside and your brain begins picking up more sensory information, chances are that you will not quite remember that exact sequence of numbers after a few minutes. This is your short-term memory, or your active memory, which is the information that you are currently thinking about. Your short-term memory generally lasts about 20 to 30 seconds, and most of this information is quickly erased. Now you go inside house 76453, and there's a party going on. You meet a person of the gender that you are attracted to, and y'all hit it off immediately. 20 years down the road, when you are married, you can look back on that day that you met your spouse and picture it in vivid detail. This is your long-term memory, or memory that is outside of your current awareness, but can be recalled generally quickly when you need it or want it. Your long-term memory can last anywhere from a few weeks to a whole lifetime. As long as you take care of yourself in a pretty good way, then your memory will stay good. However, there are several things that can impair your ability to remember. So generally, your memory will only significantly decrease due to old age or brain damage. However, a significant amount of flying or changing of time zones leads to jet lag, and jet lag impairs your spatial memory, or your ability to travel around a city just through your memory. So if you're too much jet lag will impair your spatial memory, and your spatial memory will lead to a decrease in you being able to remember in what city you did what, or where you went to what store. A lack of sleep or a general significant disturbance while you are asleep will also cause your brain to not be able to restore or retain memories as effectively. And an excess of stress hormones can also cause your brain to not be able to retain information as well. So, as long as you get your sleep and keep those stress levels down, your memory will be just fine. There are several psychological phenomenons that a lot of scientists don't seem to really understand about our memory. The first, and a phenomenon in which many people can attest to experiencing, is Deja Vu, French for already seen, or the feeling of being familiar with something that you should not really be familiar with. There are two generally accepted forms of Deja Vu. The first, Deja Vu, or French for already visited, is the feeling in which you have already been to a place in which you truly do know that you have never been to before. The second, Deja Vécu, or French for already experienced or already lived through, is the feeling in which you are doing an activity that you know you've never done before, but you definitely feel as if you have, such as driving on a road in a town you know you've never been to, but it feels as if you've done it hundreds of times before. Another psychological phenomenon is called false memory, or recalling an event that never did happen. Researchers have concluded that our brains can create, exaggerate, distort, or even reinvent memories. According to psychologytoday.com, memories are, at best, sensory and emotional impressions blurred by the imagination, belief, ambiguity, and time. As convincing as juries may find the testimony of witnesses, good prosecutors know that human memory is, more often than not, the least reliable source of evidence. Researcher and psychological scientist Julia Shaw of the University of Bedfordshire states that our findings show that false memories of committing crimes with police contact can be surprisingly easy to generate and can have all of the same kinds of complex details as real memories. All participants need to generate a richly detailed false memory is 3 hours in a friendly interview environment, where the interviewer introduces just a few wrong details and uses poor memory retrieval techniques. In her research, her and her researchers interviewed parents of the participants and asked them to tell them stories from the participants' lives from ages 11 to 14. The interviewer then sat down with the participant and told them 2 stories, one completely true and one very false. The false story ranged from committing a crime of theft to being attacked by a dog from the ages of 11 to 14. The participants were then asked to explain what happened in the two events. They could normally recall the true event in vivid detail, but often, when they obviously had trouble explaining what happened in the false event, the interviewer simply told them to try their best. At the end of this experiment, which was 3 40-minute sessions with this interviewer, one every week, 70% of the participants were convinced that they had committed a crime, and 77 had believed that they were harmed in some way, such as being attacked by a dog or breaking their arm. These researchers theorized that small but true details, such as adding the name of a childhood friend and suggesting that they were there during the false event, led to just enough plausibility that the participants simply forgot that it had ever happened. Our memory truly does make us who we are. Our experiences help form our personalities, and that helps form us as people. Your memory is a complex process of neurotransmission. The many different parts of our brain stores different parts of our information that help us remember all of the things that have happened in our lives. Avoiding damaging or destroying your brain will help you have quality memory in your brain. Lapses in memory can also often be signs of good mental health, despite the fact that recalling false events may seem like something's wrong. I will leave you with the words of Oscar Wilde. Memory is the diary that we all carry with us.